Chapter 2. An Only Child. The question presented to me for a story was, did you get along with your siblings as a child? Well, as an only child, I have no idea what it is like to have a brother or a sister. My daughter Michelle would have no idea either since she is an only child. I really didn't think much about it when I was growing up. It was just the way it was. There were several other kids in my neighborhood in the same boat. There was Linda Hancock across the street, Donna Moulton just down a couple of houses, and Mike Klein down around the corner. It was not unusual. To my knowledge, the question about why I was the only child never came up with my parents and me. I don't think there was any reason medically why they couldn't have had more children. I think it was more like they wanted me to have as much as I could growing up, and not have to worry about trying to feed and raise more kids. I was born in 1946, which made me one of the first of the baby boomer era. We were called that because there was a 15 to 20-year period beginning in 1946 where there was a big spike in birth rates. It was a post-World War II population boom. I was a typical baby boomer. We were those who became of age during the Vietnam War era. We lived through the hippie era. Our music was rock and roll, and we were part of a great cultural and social change. We experienced things like Beatlemania and Woodstock. Many of my friends and classmates went into the service or were drafted and went to Vietnam. Some did not survive. My dad was never in the military. I don't know why, and I never asked. Several of my relatives served in the military, and some of the older ones fought in World War II. My uncle Albert, my mom's brother, fought in the war and came back with many harrowing stories about fighting in Europe. The stories that my uncle told about his experiences serving in that war were terrifying, but very memorable. It was a miracle that he survived to tell them. I think that this is the main reason that my mother could never let me go into the military. She couldn't have survived a day of me leaving home for the military. I was her only child. I turned 18, and by law, I had to register with the Selective Service. I know this had to be a very nervous time for my mom and dad. I don't remember the exact sequence of events, but there are certain things that I do know about this period in my life. After registering with the Selective Service, you get a card with a classification. I think all males got a 1A classification. There were other classes which gave you certain deferments. For example, if you were attending college or married with children, there were deferments. I attended Utterback and Brown Business College here in Danville and took classes in accounting in the evenings. My mother thought I would make a good accountant. She could see me with that green visor on my head. At some point when I was 18, I was sent a letter saying that I had to go for a physical exam. The exam was in Chicago, and they had a regular procedure for the boys in Vermilion County. We got on the C&EI train at the Danville station on a specific date and time and went to Dearborn Station in downtown Chicago. The train could have been the Dixie Flyer, which ran until January 1966. Some of those on that train that day would not return with me. They would take their physical and go on to a basic training camp somewhere in the country. My instructions were to get back on the train after the event and return to Danville. It was not induction day, but just a physical for classification. That day was a day I will mark as a very special day in my life. I will try to explain. We all got off the train and were rounded up by a military sergeant who marched us several blocks to a huge building downtown Chicago. There we all were, led to a big room where we stripped down to just our undershorts. From there we were led from station to station where the various medical inspection took place. The one station that made a difference in my classification and my life was the eye exam. I stood there in front of two medical examiners. I remember it very well. I had taken the eye exam, which looked at my vision for my right eye and my left eye. I could tell that something was wrong with the vision in my right eye. It was not good at all compared to the left eye. I had never had an eye exam that revealed that before. I was told to step aside while the two examiners conferred. After hearing them say that I wouldn't be able to shoot a gun very well since I was right-handed, they gave me a classification of 4F. I returned home that night with emotions that are very difficult to explain. That classification meant that I was one of the last to be drafted, and only if they ran out of higher classified draftees. My parents, of course, were very happy about the situation. I, on the other hand, had feelings that were pulling at me in all directions. I had feelings of relief, but also feelings of, well, rejection. It's like I couldn't go even if I wanted to. This is something that haunts me to this day. My mother took me to an eye clinic in Bloomington, and they said I had a malformed cornea called keratoconus, and it could not be corrected with glasses or surgery. I have lived with it ever since. By 1969, some of my closest friends and even my bandmates were going into the service, either enlisting or drafted. It was a nervous time for everyone back at that time. I see my friends that went to fight in the Vietnam War, and I honor them. But if someone asks if I went, I find it hard to have a good answer other than no. President Kennedy changed the draft to give deferments to those enrolled in college, recognizing the importance of education. President Johnson gave deferments for marriage, recognizing the importance of family. I would have also recognized the importance of continuing the bloodline and ancestry and protected male and female only child Americans. All I know is that my life was set on a certain track back then, and I have spent my entire life striving to be the best father, husband, and American that I can be. Life has been very good to me, and so thankful that my family tree will continue. Update. I recently had cataracts removed on both eyes. During that process, the doctor and I discussed the keratoconus with the right eye. I thought that there might be a problem with the surgery on the right, but there was not. He chose to do the right eye first. He also said that I should talk to the ophthalmologist after the surgery is healed, and he may have some help for the right eye. I did go through the process of getting new glasses after the surgery. Ever since my first try in correcting the vision in my right eye in my late teens, I have never had any success. All these years I have had just a plain lens in my glasses on the right. When I talked with the doctor during my eye exam for new glasses, he told me something very interesting. He said that the brain has to take the sight from both eyes and mix them together to get a picture. After all these years, my brain has been relying on getting a good picture with just my left eye. He said that after all these years, I may not be able to adjust to getting a usable picture from my right eye. So we decided to try putting a correction in the lens for the right eye, but not the full amount that is possible. I got my new glasses with full correction for the left and about 40% correction for the right. Wow! For the first time in 50 years, I was getting vision from both eyes, and my brain was dealing with it. I am so happy. I am thinking about going back and getting the full correction for the right eye. So far, I'm just loving the fact that my brain is able to deal with it.